Wait, give it a second.
Okay.
Go.
Okay.
I don't have permission to record. So whoever the host is, Sharika or Mary Jo, you guys have to record. I don't have permission.
Got it.
Okay. All right, we'll get started. All right, thank you, everyone. My name is Wayne Huddleston. I'm the Senior Area Manager for the Small Business Administration. Welcome to our 8th SBA Forum, where we are providing information on PPP, economic injury disaster loans, and all things related to help businesses get through this current pandemic that we are having and the economic shock that it is providing to the Virgin Islands economy. I want to start off by thanking the Small Business Development Center, Ted Gutierrez and all of his team for hosting us. Without them, it would be very hard to reach the full audience. And as always, I encourage you to stay in touch with the Small Business Development Center for help, not only with PPP and EIDL, but all your business start and business growth questions and needs that you have. If you've been on this before, you'll know the format is pretty straightforward. We will spend about 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, going through information related to the 2 largest programs helping people get through this time, which are PPP and EIDL. And then we will open it up to the audience to answer questions that you may have with PPP, with EIDL, with forgiveness, or anything related to keeping your business sustainable or any program related to SBA or SBDC. So without further ado, I'll get to our part of the presentation and get started. If you can go to the next slide, please, Ted. I'd like to start off by giving you just the numbers on where we are with PPP nationally and here in the Virgin Islands. We've done over 5 million PPP loans for just under $520 billion. That's a huge number, but there's still $130 billion remaining. The average loan size is $104,000, which lets us know that we are reaching a lot of people, a lot of small businesses. I know you hear reports about millions of dollars going to large businesses, but that is few and far between, and those will all be audited over time by SBA. Here in the Virgin Islands, though, is what we really care about. And as of July 24th, 1,931 loans have been provided to Virgin Island businesses. This program continues to be accessible until August 8th. The important thing to remember is that the PPP program is a loan that is forgivable, that essentially will turn into a grant. And we will get into more information on the forgivable aspect of that later on. But that is a significant amount of dollars coming into Virgin Island businesses to help us get through this period. The other major program we have is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. So far, we have issued advances to Virgin Island businesses totaling over $6.5 million. Those advances were an early part of the program, and if you receive those, you do not have to pay those back. You can keep those. The total number of loans that we've approved is 1,448 loans that have been approved for Virgin Islanders for a little over $81 million. Now, these are loans. They are not forgivable. However, the terms are really nice, 30-year terms with a 3.75% interest rate. And there's no penalty to prepay those. So next slide, please. I'm going to go a little bit more detail on economic injury. As I said, they're long-term, low-interest loans to small businesses and nonprofits. You must show that you were in operation prior to February 1st. You cannot decide to create a business and then receive those loans. You can be used for a variety of things. While PPP is meant to cover payroll, with a little bit of an exception, economic injury can be used to cover more things, cover inventory, pay debt, other accounts payable. However, it cannot be used in just any format you wish. Kind of think of a economic injury disaster loan as a reserve fund to help you pay bills that you would normally pay in the course of your business. It's not meant to go out and buy a new car or pay yourself bonuses or do some other things or pay or reconsolidate debt. It's meant to get you through this period. So make sure that you read the rules regarding that and spend it accordingly. Loan amounts are up to $150,000. Once you receive that, you have a 12-month deferral period where you don't have to pay anything. And as I said, the terms are 30 years and 3.75% if you're a business, 2.75% if you're a nonprofit. No collateral is required if you're less than $25,000 on the loan. And you can have an existing disaster loan and still qualify. This is a separate disaster, but you cannot consolidate the loans. You cannot use an EIDL loan to pay off another loan and consolidate them in that way. As I said, there's no penalties for early payoff. If you have questions about your loan, this is the basic information we're providing you, but we have a whole department of SBA that manages our portfolio of economic injury disaster loans, and they can be contacted either at the email below or by calling 1-800-659-2955. Next slide, please. One thing I'd like to make sure you're aware of is there has been a phishing campaign recently for information. This is, I'm not sure of the source, but I do know it's not coming from SBA. It may look like it because in the beginning, it looks like it's from disaster customer service at sba.gov. But if you look closely, it's actually coming from an Eventbrite email. They will have a link in there to say, please click here to verify your identity. And then they will have an official looking SBA logo, and they will ask for a few pieces of information to include your social security number. That is not SBA. I want everybody to know SBA will never ask for your personal information. Well, they may ask for your name and others do Eventbrite, but they would never ask for your social security number or other important information like that through an Eventbrite platform. We would only do that through our platform. This has already affected at least one Virgin Island business that I'm aware of in the Virgin Islands, and it may have gone to others. So we want to include that in a presentation today to make sure you're aware of it. Next slide. And with that, I am going to turn it over to my colleague, Lisa, who will take you through the details of the Paycheck Protection Program and forgiveness aspects of it. Lisa?
Thank you, Wayne, and good afternoon to all of you online. Just to continue along what we were saying, the Paycheck Protection Program, this is the last week for its application as at today. Things might change, but as at right now, it's closing on August 8th. However, a lot of the local banks have closed application portals. There are still one or two. So for anyone who has not yet taken a PPP loan, you can still call around or email around or check the portals, and some of the banks are lending as well as fintech companies. And there are also several stateside banks that have done approved loans in the Virgin Islands. So the PPP is eligible to businesses operating since at least February 15th. And the loan amount is up to 10 million. But as Wayne said, the average loan size that we have seen has been around $104,000. There is a fixed formula. It's the average annual payroll divided by 12 and multiplied by 2. If you're a seasonal business or if you only opened for a couple of months before February 15th, then the formula will change. But generally, if you were open for an entire year from your 2019 tax documents, that's how it will be calculated. Loan payments deferred for 10 months and the maturity is up to 5 years. Again, this was a loan that was brought on to help get people back on the payroll. And so the primary use for forgiveness is a minimum of 60% of the approved loan proceeds spent on payroll. Upward, you can spend up to 100% on payroll, but a minimum of 60%. And then a maximum of 40% on other expenses, those being rent, utilities, and mortgage interest. No collateral or personal guarantees are required for a PPP. The interest rate for any portion that is not forgiven is 1%. And for right now, we're asking that everyone just keep your documentation in order so that when the forgiveness platform opens on August 10th, 2020, and you start looking at applying for forgiveness through your lender, you will have everything, ready to go to your lender. Next slide. So let's look at a little bit about the general process to obtain loan forgiveness. And I will not read through all of these, but I want to highlight a few things. So we will talk a little bit more about the form that you have to fill out, the loan application form. It's for right now, it's form 3508 or 3508EZ. And I will describe in a couple of moments what has to happen for you to fill out an easy form as versus the form 308. Once you submit your documentation to your lenders, they have three options in terms of a decision regarding loan forgiveness: approval in whole or in part, denial, or denial without prejudice. Once they receive a complete application, and a complete application from you as a borrower would include completion of the form and any documentation that they request that shows how you calculated your payroll, that shows, you know, proof of rent and mortgage utilities and so on. But once there is a complete application, then your lender has 60 days to issue a decision to SBA. And then from that time, SBA has another 90 days after the lender issues its decision to SBA. So we're looking at a 5-month spread between application for forgiveness and a decision around forgiveness at your longest time frame, roughly. It could happen faster depending on the volume of PPP application for forgiveness that your lender is handling. But just know that it is not something that will be turned around in 2 days. You're looking at about 5 months for the entire forgiveness process to take its course. If you are a borrower who has had both a PPP loan and you have also received an EIDL advance, this is closed now, but if in the time you have received an EIDL advance and a PPP loan, the EIDL advance amount will be deducted from the forgiveness remitted to the lender. So let's just say that you feel that you're eligible for 100% of a PPP loan, and the PPP loan was, let's say, $100,000, but you also got a $5,000 EIDL advance, then the maximum eligibility for forgiveness will be $95,000. Okay, once the lender receives notification from SBA about forgiveness, the lender is responsible for notifying you. So that will be if you got full forgiveness, or if the lender reduced your forgiveness, or if SBA denies the application. And they will also let you know what's the first date of the loan payment to be made, and also what's the maturity date of the loan. So that's just some of the process. But again, the big thing to remember here is you're looking at a 5-month process for forgiveness. Next slide. So we talked about when can you obtain loan forgiveness. So a borrower may submit a loan forgiveness for a PPP application just once. So on or before the maturity date of the loan, including before the end of the covered period. And the covered period is if you got a loan early and you used all of it in 8 weeks, that's fine. If you elected to spread it out over 24 weeks, that's fine. But if you have used all of the loan proceeds within either of those timeframes, then you can apply for forgiveness. Now, if the borrower has reduced any employee's salaries or wages more than 25% on any one employee's salary or wages, then you must account for that reduction for the full 8 or 24-week covered period. The borrower must begin paying principal and interest within 10 months after the last day of the covered period, or if SBA determines that the loan is not eligible for forgiveness in whole or in part, and there is no more deferral. So that is when you must begin paying the principal and interest. Let's just go to the next slide then. So what form? We talked about what form do you use for the application, and for most people it'll be form 3508, and you can find that under www.sba.gov/PPP. You'll find the exact form. So if you see yourself represented in any of 1, 2, or 3, then you could be eligible to fill out a form 3508 easy. So if you're a self-employed borrower, or an independent contractor with no employees, and you didn't include any salaries except for your own in the calculation of your monthly payroll, then you may apply for you may use the form 3508EZ. If you did have employees, but as a borrower, you didn't reduce wages by more than 25%, and you didn't reduce the number of employees or the average paid hours of employees, then you can as well use the form 3508. And if you didn't reduce wages by more than 25% and you were unable to operate at the same level of activity due to government restrictions on your business, then you can also use form 3508EZ. The difference between the EZ and the form 3508 is 2 pages. So just a bit more information is required. Next slide. So what documentation does the borrower submit to the lender? So we talked about the form either 3508 or 3508EZ, depending on how you apply. And then generally you want to submit proof of payment for your payroll, whether those are canceled checks, members' draws, so all cash and non-cash compensation. For non-payroll, you want proof of obligation and proof of payment. So you want to submit utility bills and rent bills, all of these things, making sure that those were regular bills that you would have been paying before February 15th. And for 3508 only, you also have to do a PPP Schedule A, which shows the average number of full-time employees on payroll during reference time periods, which is the period that you have to spend it in. Next slide. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some safe harbors for PPP forgiveness. So if you had to reduce the hours of an employee and then you offered to restore the reduction in hours and your employee declined the offer, then you may use that as a safe harbor in terms of your forgiveness application. And you will see that is, kind of like the 4 steps. You in good faith made a written offer to restore the number of reduced hours or to restore an employee to, to full pay, and the offer was rejected, and you have documentation if needed about the offer and its rejection. And the documents that the borrower should maintain, if asked, to show compliance with this are the written offer to rehire an individual, a written record of the offer's rejection, or a written record of efforts to hire a similarly qualified individual. Let's go to another safe harbor, and this is around, next slide, and this is around the operation of businesses. So if you had to have a reduction in the number of full-time employees, if you were in good faith unable to return to the same level of business activity, and we know about that here because a lot of businesses are operating at 50% capacity. So between March 1, 2020 and December 31st, 2020, if you were complying with orders from the CDC, orders from the Department of Health and Human Services, and OSHA orders, then that is taken into consideration as a safe harbor when you are applying for forgiveness. If you could not bring on all of the employees that you applied for in terms of the PPP loan. Next question. Next slide. So this is what you don't. This is what you keep. And but you don't necessarily submit it to a lender unless they ask for it. And most of you have good relationships. You've used your primary lenders, and so they know how the business operates. But in case they ask, then you want to have all records and supporting documentation, your Schedule A worksheet for each employee, and documentation supporting those safe harbors. But if asked for. Next slide. And the other thing I will mention before this, and then I will turn it back over to Wayne, my colleague, to wrap us up, is that by law, you should keep that documentation for 6 years for tax purposes in case you are audited. So even the documentation that you're not necessarily handing over to your lender, but it shows proof of compliance with the PPP the PPP laws, then keep those for a period of 6 years before getting rid of them. Okay, Mr. Huddleston, back over to you. And you need to unmute.
All right, thank you, Lisa. This last slide, I just want to emphasize that SBA reserves the right to review any loan of any size at any time, and that includes PPP. It includes any loan that SBA is given, whether it's an old disaster loan from Maria, or going way back to Hugo, or an economic injury disaster loan. Those are all subject to review. So you should always try to keep your information handy. I also suggest, just to add on to what Lisa was saying, while it's required that you keep that information for 6 years, I also suggest you keep information handy for any active loan that you have that is not paid in full. And even if it is paid in full, I suggest you keep that information somewhere. Some of the calls that I get, not very often, but I get them every once in a while, probably half a dozen a year, are people who are trying to find information on an old loan that was paid off, that was secured with property. So oftentimes someone's trying to sell a home or a piece of property. Maybe their parents own it and their parents have since passed along, but there is, in the courthouse, it shows that there's a lien on the property by SBA. And that triggers a huge search for information that sometimes doesn't get as fast as the borrower would like when they're trying to close on a new deal. So I always encourage you to keep that information even beyond the dates that are required. But as I said, SBA can look at any loan at any time. If that happens, if SBA is reviewing a loan, we will notify the lender, and then the lender must notify you within writing within 5 business days of a notification. SBA may not be asking the borrower for information, but just the fact that if it is reviewing something, it must let you know, and it will let you know via the lender. So be prepared for that just in case. Next slide. And then finally, this is our information. You can contact me at my email down below on the left, wayne.huddleston@sba.gov, or you may contact Lisa at her email there. There's also a cell phone number for each of us. You can call us directly. We can't always answer the phone at the time you call, but we both have voicemail set up and can respond back to you if needed. And you can follow information that we are constantly putting out. Lisa is the one managing the Twitter profile for not only the Virgin Islands, but for all of Puerto Rico. So you can follow us there and get information on our website there. But I also encourage you, especially if the question you have is not directly related to PPP or EIDL, to contact the SBDC. They are certainly well-versed on all aspects of PPP and EIDL, but they are also well-versed on many programs at SBA, plus programs offered by other entities. So even though the SBDC is funded by SBA, they do not just focus on SBA programs. They are very connected with all the lenders, with lenders on the outside, with Virgin Island Economic Development Authority, other federal agencies. They are the place to contact for direct assistance on one-on-one problems with your business. So with that, if you've been on our presentation before, you'll know that this is the time where we open it up to questions from you. You can either, I believe there's an opportunity to raise your hand through Zoom, and you can ask a question, we'll unmute you, or you can simply put a message in chat and we can respond that way. So we are just at this point going to open it up to all of you, and then if more than 5 minutes passes and no one has any questions, we'll end the presentation. And Ted, if you'd like to say anything, Ted, before we get to answer any questions or while people are thinking of things to say.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you, Wayne and Lisa. Great job as always. Appreciate the information, the updates. I'm glad to see so many small businesses took advantage of these federal programs. It's important that the small businesses utilize these grants, or not, so I'm sorry, these grants, these programs, because oftentimes down here in the territory, we feel like we're not being taken care of, or feel like we're part of the bigger picture. So all of the participation for these grants has definitely let your voice be known. So congratulations to all the folks who've reached out and received these monies so far. And if you're still in business, congratulations. That's something to celebrate. And if you have any questions regarding not only these programs, but also the future of your business, please contact SBDC, and we have plenty of resources, both staff and with contractors throughout all 3 islands to assist you. So please reach out to us. We're here to help.
Thanks, Ted.
So do we have any questions from any member of the audience?
Well, I have a question.
Mary Jo, go ahead.
Can I put out a poll while people are thinking their questions and give them 30 seconds to answer the question?
Sure.
Mhm.
I guess maybe it depends what you're asking, but
They wanted to know how you heard about this, about the SBA.
You heard it via email, social media, digital banner, radio interview, website, or word of mouth. This will basically tell us where we need to do more or less. We have 3 seconds left. Poll ends now. And I will share the results. Ta-da. So most people heard from us via email. Well, that's a good thing. And I will stop sharing results while somebody asks a question.
Do they need to unmute themselves, or is it in the chat?
It could be either. I'm not seeing anything in the chat from everyone or from anyone. And I see most people have their mics on mute. So I'm not sure if it is if it is being coordinated by SBDC or if they can unmute themselves.
They can raise their hands and we can unmute them, or they can try and unmute themselves. But while they're thinking about it, I have another question.
Is this a poll or a question, Mary Jo?
It's a poll question.
Okay.
And you'll have 30 seconds to answer that. How did you hear about this particular webinar? And email seems to be very popular. Yay, social media. Okay, 5 seconds. Poll ends now. And the majority of the people hear from us via email.
all right.
All righty.
We'll let it go another minute or 2. And if there are no questions, then we'll let everybody get on with their day. And they can always contact us by email or a phone call if needed afterwards.
Ted, if you go up 1, then they can see all of our emails easily displayed. And that way, if they are too shy, if they can't think of anything at this moment, they can always email us and we will get back to them.
While they're
One thing-
thinking about it, I have one last poll question.
Okay.
What is the best time for you to attend an open forum? Ten more seconds. Poll ends now. And the most popular time for attending, at least based on the people that are online right now, is 5 to 6.
Okay.
Of course, it's 5 to 6 right now. So
In
So we have the right audience in this room.
this room, yes.
Albert and Christopher, thank you for the comments. And if there is anything else that you need to hear about or you need to hear more about, please feel free. We are always open to continuous improvement, and we want to share with you what you want, what you need to hear to make the most out of these programs.
And next week's session?
We may have a session next week. I would encourage people to continue to watch the news. We are hoping that Congress will pass an update with additional funding to make some changes to PPP and the CARES Act. I would say stay tuned. If that happens, we will most certainly have a program next week, but we'll probably may have one anyway, just to discuss general SBA things. So stay tuned, and SBA will send out that information for us.
And thank you again to VISBDC for hosting the meeting on our behalf. And to all of you, have a wonderful evening. Be safe and take care.
Before we leave, let me, can I say one thing?
Sure.
Mary Jo, would you just announce the webinar tomorrow that's hosted by SBDC?
Yes, the webinar tomorrow that's hosted by SBDC. Boy, my brain. What's the title here? We're hosting a webinar tomorrow. It's Financial Survival During COVID-19. And our presenter will be Ms. Oren Roebuck, Senior Vice President at Banco Popular. And she's gonna have a short presentation, and she will answer a lot of questions about PPP and banking in general and how to survive. Because your banking relationship is very important. So Ms. Oren Roebuck from Banco will talk about that from 10 a.m. until, the webinar is from 10 a.m. until 11.
Where can they register for that webinar?
Oh, that's a good question. I will put the link in the chat. I have a brain here. I should have thought about that one earlier.
You can also go to the Facebook page or the website for Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center, which is VISBDC. Mary Jo's going to put the link in the chat, or go ahead and go to our website or our Facebook and get signed up. It's not very often that we have someone of that nature providing a webinar for us. So please attend, take advantage of Ms. Roebuck's robust knowledge and experience here in the VI. And thank you so much. And we look forward to hopefully seeing some familiar names tomorrow morning.
And Ms. Industrious has placed the link in the chat. So click on that to register for tomorrow's meeting.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.